I'm going to roll into this. How to use HubSpot's SEO tool to organize your content, build out pillar pages, and more. The seed of the idea to do something on HubSpot's SEO tool was, I don't know, I have sort of gathered that it's not anyone's favorite tool and probably gathers a lot of dust in a lot of HubSpot profiles accounts. So, but I think it's useful. I think if people just don't realize the use of it for those who don't really use it. I think it does have a lot of use, especially as there's been a move to kind of pillarize content and move to topic clusters. So I think maybe one obstacle is just that people don't have a good kind of plan for how to sit down and actually use the tool and get everything into HubSpot and get it all organized, get their clusters organized. So that's kind of the process that I put together here, just to make that less of a headache and not just something you pull out of air. It's not using a third-party SEO tool to actually make the process simpler and use topics that a third-party tool finds to be like validated keywords and validated parent topics, and get it all organized into a big spreadsheet that you can kind of put next to the tool and go through and get the SEO tool actually populated. So let's roll into this. If anyone here does not know me, my name is Sam Swyke. I'm the content marketing manager at Madison Marketing Group. Been using HubSpot for about 8 years now. And I'm pretty much fluent in every tool, mostly the content tools I use. And I've been using the SEO tool more and more. So that's me. Pretty simple agenda today. I'm going to talk about who this process is for, why it's important, how to do it, and then recap it all. So first, who is this for? So I think the use case here is it's a pretty specific situation that companies need to find themselves in, but I think it's a pretty common situation that a lot of companies on HubSpot find themselves in. And that is one that satisfies almost, if not all, these conditions. Your team has a somewhat or very extensive amount of blog content published, maybe you're 5 or 6, maybe more years deep into a content program, and you've been doing content the same way for quite a while and just keep seeing success with that, with the way you're doing it. The second condition here is your team is perhaps losing some of its footing in organic search to competitors who are evolving their content strategy. So maybe because you've been doing things the same or pretty similar to how you've always been doing it, it's not working quite as well as it used to work. And it's still working good enough and you're seeing results from it, but you're a little bit nervous at some of the trends, and maybe some competitors are coming in and crowding the space that you used to own. And you're seeing competitor pages, competitor content start to replace your positions in organic search with some more sophisticated content templates, more sophisticated content. And you can kind of surmise that there's they're kind of evolving their strategy, and it's time to maybe move your own into the future here. The third condition is that your team is not keeping its content organized in a useful way. So, I think that a lot of companies probably have something like a spreadsheet, or maybe they use Airtable, or maybe a combination of a couple different tools to organize their content, especially if they have a lot of it. But I think one thing about the HubSpot's SEO tool is that it gives you a different way to organize it. It's not a spreadsheet. It's visualizing it in clusters. And that can be a particularly, it offers a little bit of utility that a spreadsheet doesn't. So if you find yourself wishing that you had a different format for looking at your content, I think this would be a useful exercise, and using the SEO tool might have some value for you there. The other condition here, your team knows it's time to pillarize, but hasn't at all, or hasn't in earnest. So this kind of speaks to point number 2. Maybe you've only really been publishing blog posts, and you haven't really evolved your strategy to any other content formats, namely pillar pages, much or at all. And again, you might be seeing some competitors do those kinds of things, and are with Google rewarding them for that evolution. And you kind of sense it's time for you to be doing that too, but not sure where to start. Your team doesn't have a clear plan for pillarizing content thoughtfully. I think getting the SEO tool filled out and having those clusters visible is, I think for a lot of teams, depending on how much content you have and how much the volume at which you post, is how big your content program is. It's kind of a requisite to, one way or another, have that visualized and put those clusters together in a way that is thoughtful and lets you plan and see what you have. And then the final one is, your team has or is willing to buy a top tier SEO tool, at least for a while. There's no scary price tag to doing the process I have here, but it does involve a third-party tool that I think if you were to use the one I suggest here and put it in my process, it would only cost $7 if you were committed to doing this in a week. They have a 7-day, $7 trial that I think you could do this whole process in and put your content into pillars in that amount of time. So why use HubSpot's SEO tool? I kind of cover this stuff, but let's kind of make the case here, especially if you want to make the case to yourself or someone else. First, you can visualize your topic clusters. Internal linking I've seen emerge as, one of these areas of, quote unquote technical SEO, things that's within your control, that is often doesn't get optimized as well as it could be. But I'm seeing a lot of research surface from SEOs and companies that invest quite a bit in sprucing up their internal linking, and have seen incredible lift from just doing that. And it's something that you can build on going forward. And having the SEO tool filled out lets you do that, because you can see the links between all your content. The second point here, you can spot light clusters and prioritize accordingly. This kind of speaks to the idea of just being able to visualize your clusters and seeing, especially if you have a lot of content right now, putting them into cluster format, visualizing them, you can spot, boy, I have some natural clusters that have just emerged from publishing a lot. But these 3 are really important. We should really be writing more on these things. What kind of topics can I write on that links to my cluster there? Third, you can easily track performance by topic. I think this tool is really simple, but one of the things it does do in HubSpot is let you track performance by your clusters, which I think is kind of unique and speaks to a point that I think it's missed a lot, which is, I think especially with content marketing, there's sort of this bias towards doing new things. What new topics haven't we done? Whereas when you actually look at what's performing the best, you can start saying, how can I do more of that? This one's working far and away the best. How can I just keep building this pillar if it's not exhaustive at that point? So tracking performance by topic is kind of interesting. And you can plan pillar pages based on natural topic clusters that exist right now across your content, but aren't being properly linked. So again, if you have a big glut of blog content out there that's performing well, but isn't linked, you don't have the internal linking that corpus of content really deserves. This is kind of the first step to getting that linked, which I think is extremely important, and especially for companies who find themselves in these positions where they have a lot of content out there after years of investment in it. So how to do it? So here's the process. And I'll caveat this by saying it's a little bit awkward to try to present these 2 slides. But I think the slides do a good enough job of getting the point across, and we are recording this. So if any, we'll send this out, and if you do find this valuable and you want to kind of take this process, you can always look back on this. And I'm always here to help with that too, if you have any questions. First, the ingredients, what you need to do this. 1, a bunch of blog content. 2, HubSpot Pro or higher to get the tool. 3, some kind of spreadsheet. You can use Excel, you can use Google Sheets. I actually used Apple's Numbers app for like the first time ever here, because it's really the work we're doing in a spreadsheet is very simple. And then the big one here is Ahrefs, which is the tool I use. Ahrefs is very much like SEMrush, SEMrush. Does a few things differently, and there's people who prefer one or the other. I think for the purposes of what we're doing here, Ahrefs is really powerful and easy. And like I said, it's $7 for 1 week, and you can get this project done in a week for sure, probably. Otherwise, I'm not a spokesperson for Ahrefs, but I'm a big advocate of it. I use it all the time. $99 a month, depending on your budget and your content program. Almost always going to be a good investment, just to use it to track your keywords and expose new ones, and all the kind of keyword research, advanced keyword research you can do with a tool like that. So I condensed this process into 4 basic steps. So let's take a look at it. 1, you use this Ahrefs tool to analyze your blog and reveal all the detectable keywords your posts are currently ranking for. So let's unpack that for just a second. This tool allows you to put in a site or a part of a site. It will scan that site. In this case, we're doing a blog. For most companies will be doing this to their blog. So everything under /blog or however you have it configured, and it will look at all of those pages, your blog posts, and reveal all of the keywords in its database that you are ranking for. It could be first page, it could be all the way back to page 100. So it surfaces everything you're ranking for, and it's the things you are targeting, and it's things you might not have been targeting. It's everything you're actually ranking for and where. So we'll get that list and we'll export it. The second step here is using Ahrefs again to take that list of keywords and then put it back into a different part of Ahrefs that's not connected to your site anymore. It's just looking at those keywords in a vacuum, basically. And we're going to expose those keywords, parent keywords or parent topics. And there's a specific way that Ahrefs gets at the parent topic for any specific keyword. But the parent topic here will serve as a sort of a data validated core cluster that will nest our content around and see what keywords fit under those parent topics, as a way to not just pull it out of thin air, which I think a lot of companies do when they use the SEO tool here. Third, we'll create a spreadsheet that organizes your specific keywords from that first list by their parent topics from that second list, and the URLs of the pages ranking for them, which is also going to be contained in that first list. So when you pull your keywords from Ahrefs, you'll also have a column next. You'll have the keyword and then a lot of other information, but one of those columns will be the URL from your site, in this case, the blog post that will be ranking for that keyword. So we're going to put all that stuff together into one sheet so that we can port all of that into the HubSpot tool. And then fourth, we'll use this list to efficiently build out topic clusters for pillar pages, spot opportunities to better target specific keywords, and prioritize your editorial calendar accordingly. So let's get into it. First, what's a parent topic? Ahrefs defines it. Parent topic determines if you can rank for your keyword, your target keyword, specific keyword, while targeting a more general topic on your page instead. So we're kind of getting at the concept of pillar here. To identify the parent topic, we take the #1 ranking page for your keyword, specific keyword, and find the keyword responsible for sending the most traffic to that page. So you can kind of chew on that for a little while, but it's basically a way to look at what keyword is sending the most traffic to that page. It's a validated way of getting at basically the center of the cluster. So let's dig into these steps a little bit. 1, reveal the keywords and the parent topics your content is ranking for. So when you're in Ahrefs, there's a tool called Site Explorer, and this allows you to, and we used our agency's blog for an example here, but yours will look different. You put your blog into here, and you can limit this to a certain part of your site. You can do this site-wide if you want, but for this purpose, we'll just do the blog. And when you hit that yellow button, it will scan the pages by the parameter you put in there. And then on the sidebar, there's a tool called Organic Keywords. So if you click that tool, you'll get something like this. And I'm using some anonymized reporting from another portal here, from another site. So I blurred the URLs here for anonymity, but um, uh, you'll see this report of the keywords on the left there. A lot of information about how much volume that keyword gets every month, the cost per click. There's a lot of information that Ahrefs will reveal to you. But for this purpose, what we want is the keyword and the URL and the volume too. We'll talk about later. But all you do is you'll get this list and you'll hit that export button that I put an arrow, and that'll pop a sheet. And you'll have the same thing in a sheet version here. So here we have, we'll just pause and recognize what we have here. These are all the keywords in Ahrefs database. So not all the keywords, but all the keywords that garner some level of common search traffic every month, detectable search traffic. So not the really long tail stuff, but a lot of keywords. You pull this and you'll have that big list of all the keywords you're actually ranking for, the ones you're targeting, the ones you're maybe not targeting, everything, with a lot of other information in the columns about each one. So we're going to copy that column of keywords. We're going to go back into Ahrefs, into their Keywords Explorer tool, and then we're just going to paste that in there. And we're now disconnected from any kind of scan of your website. We're just looking at these keywords in a vacuum, basically. And we run an analysis on, we explore those keywords, and you'll get a kind of similar looking report here where all of those keywords will be there, and it'll expose a lot of data about them. But what we want here is the parent topic. And again, we'll just export this sheet. So we have two. We now have one sheet that is a specific scan of keywords from your blog, and then you'll have a separate sheet containing the parent topics of the keywords in a vacuum. So step 2 is to combine your current keywords, ones you're ranking for, with their parent topics and the URLs that are ranking for those keywords in a single sheet. So we're just sort of copying some columns over and putting them into one sheet so that we can use them together. So again, it's a little bit confusing to try to show this in a slide, but what I've done is overlaid my first sheet, which is under the second sheet. The first sheet is the keywords from my site. The second sheet exposes the parent keywords, as you can see in that column there. And all we're doing here is we just want to sort these the same way so that we can port columns from one to the other. So the easiest way to do that is just to take your keywords and sort both sheets by alphabetically so that they're sorted the same way. And they should be in the same order. We'll copy the current URL from our first sheet, that whole column, into the second sheet. And that gives us, again, I had to blur it out, but the keywords, the URLs that are ranking for those keywords, and then the parent topics for those keywords. So we have those all neatly put together. We can all reference them in one line. And then we'll sort that final sheet again by the parent keyword. And then the kind of magic happens here where we see the parents emerge with their specific keywords nested under them. So we're sorting it by parent keyword, and you'll see all the common parent keywords emerge. And I have a little video here to show kind of what this looks like. And I just, all these URLs would look different. I just use a filler URL here, example. But you'll see here that these parent topics start emerging repeatedly, and they're connected right to your specific keywords. So you kind of start understanding how you could put this next to the keyword tool in HubSpot and just start porting it over. And you have your parent topics there in the middle. You might want to phrase it slightly differently if it's not exactly what the keyword is. But you can just start pulling the keyword, and you have the URL, the actual document that's there, page that's there. So we're almost all the way there just with this. And you can see how this kind of starts saving you quite a bit of time if you have this all in a sheet. Step 3 is to use that sheet to construct your topic clusters in HubSpot. So just what I said there. You can put this on one side. If you have two screens, you can put it on one display and have HubSpot open the other one. And unfortunately, there's no quick way to kind of automatically do this, but I think if you have a lot of blog content, you're still going to save yourself an incredible amount of time by having this sort of magical spreadsheet sorted here with all your parents there, all your keywords there, and then all your content connected to that there. You can just start filling in this case, CAPA, corrective and preventive action. Let's get the pillar, like, I have this pillar page almost out there in the world. It's not connected together, and my spreadsheet's showing me those connections. I can just draw those connections in right to HubSpot and start filling out my pillars. So I'm not going to go into actually using the tool, because I think all the 101 academy materials on how to use this tool are very good at doing that, and I don't think that there's anything tricky about doing this. It's literally putting the sheet next to the tool, and you just start banging these out. Now, this is optional. I think this is really important, though. Step 4 is to use keyword position where in Google's where in search engine result pages you're ranking for those keywords, to reveal which subtopics, which nodes on the cluster deserve their own blog posts. So, if you're just doing blogging, it's probably the case that you have some blogs that are probably like acting like pillars. They're performing like pillars, but there's a lot of tertiary or secondary keywords that you might not have been targeting, but you're ranking for, and you would like to rank better for. But since that piece of content is not geared specifically to that keyword, it's not close enough, you're hanging out on page 5, 6, 7, 8 in search results. The Ahrefs data we just took, namely the first sheet from the scan, will give you your position in SERPs for that. So if you go back to that first sheet and bring that column in, I highlighted it in orange here, yellow. Paste your current positions from your first sheet and use this data to identify keywords that deserve their own articles. So this is kind of like a whole nother dimension of insight here, because now you can start seeing, okay, my Kappa pillar is taking shape here. It's already out there. I just need to put this together. But I'm ranking first page for a couple things here, but I can look at what post is actually ranking for something that's on page 3 here, and these numbers are just 1 means you're number 1 in the list, 13 means you're on page 2, given that there's 10 results on most SERP pages. You can start seeing, okay, I'm Kappa investigation. Whatever's out in the world right now is not, I'm not getting that keyword as best as I could. Now I can start going into my editorial calendar and my plan and start prioritizing. Okay, now that I have this pillar planned, I can actually pick out where I'm sitting way back and start targeting, start fleshing out actual blog posts and building out that cluster around things that I'm not ranking particularly well for right now. In addition to Ahrefs, Google Search Console can also be helpful in surfacing some of this data. Ahrefs is a third-party tool and doesn't, but Google Search Console is obviously a first-party tool, since it's Google giving you their own information, and you can actually do some of this with that tool too. And then step 5 is actually building out your pillar pages and then establishing robust internal linking across them. So this is where you actually put rubber to road, and this deserves its whole other discussion about how to actually go and put a pillar page together and do those things. But this is kind of, these 4 points are what's kind of on the other side of this process, where in HubSpot, okay, if you don't have a pillar template, that's step 1, right? Is to design and develop a pillar template that's fast, well organized, and abides by UX best practices. So in 2021, going into 2022 here, pillar pages have been around long enough to where some best practices have emerged around ones that work really well and do their job really well. So I think if you don't have a pillar template, and really you don't have a home for that more comprehensive content that acts as a hub for all the spokes, that's kind of step 1. And I would really suggest not trying to sort of just turn your blog into a pillar, because it most of the time it won't offer the UX. It's not a proper home for something like that. You can get away with some things like that, but it's really not a long-term solution. So especially if you find yourself being sort of outgunned by better templates that competitors are bringing for organizing content, I would say something to do on the other side of this process is to think about what a template could look like for your content and what the best way to get that built would be. The content, or the HubSpot marketplace has, I know they have a few off the shelf, off the rack filler templates you can take. I don't know if I'd necessarily suggest doing that, but one thing I'll shamelessly self-promote, position an agency as a resource here, because if you work with an agency that has, or approach an agency that's done pillars in the past, it's the kind of thing where they can they've solved those problems in the past and can usually take their template and customize it for you. That's something we've done for clients. And once you build it a couple times, you have this working model that can be sort of molded to look different or operate slightly different or be skinned with different branding. That if the bones work well, you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. An agency might have that wheel somewhat already built that you can come in and take for your own, and maybe save some money and some risk, since it's a proven template. Some of your blog content may be performing like a pillar already. I kind of mentioned this. Consider transferring this to your pillar template. So you might find when you do this process that, for example, if going back to that kappa topic that I pulled out in some of the images, you might have just one or two blog posts on kappa, for example. And so they're kind of acting like pillars because they're garnering a lot of traffic from a lot of different keywords. In that case, if you find that's the case for you, it might be good to just think about porting your blog post to that template in a way that doesn't, introduce risk, or there's some boxes you want to make sure you check when you do something like that. But a lot of this work might be already being done by one of your blog posts. In that case, some of this work just might be involving porting it to a better template that gives it a better home and lets you do some of that linking with some nice styling and some thoughtful UX and design components there. Link all your subtopic content to the pillar and vice versa. So this really speaks to the whole point of doing this in the first place, and the utility that underlies HubSpot's SEO tool is really the internal linking, where, like I said, a lot of companies, especially ones that have been just doing this for years and have pretty mature content programs, it's just there's a huge missed opportunity in all the internal linking that can be done between that content, especially going back to old content. So what's cool about HubSpot's tool is that you can, those nodes turn green when you get those links right. So you can very clearly see whether you've linked your things and how you're linking them, and spot the gaps and get your linking in order. And like I said, if some of the research is to be trusted industry-wide, you might see some general lift when Google starts crawling your site and seeing that you're doing that kind of janitorial work across the site to make your links stronger. And then fourth, use HubSpot's SEO tool to make sure new content is organized and linked appropriately going forward. So this is kind of the forward-looking utility of using a tool like this, is in addition to whatever you're doing in a spreadsheet to organize content, or however you're doing it elsewhere, you can it's a nice simple interface to be able to just keep adding to these clusters, see which ones are light, make sure you're linking to them, or in the case of once you've done this and poured everything into HubSpot, going back and either pruning old content or sprucing up old content. When something new comes out, linking it to something old. These are the kind of things that just get lost in competing priorities and are just not it's a failure of imagination on the part of the producer, and it's a failure of time management to just set time aside to do these things. But like I said, the more research that comes out for among those who sit down and actually do these linking projects, the more value it seems to have. So so let's just kind of quickly recap. I know this is a quick presentation. SEO tools like Ahrefs can help you analyze which keywords, and I'm recapping here in case you want to kind of steal this and make the case to a boss or to yourself here for doing this. SEO tools like Ahrefs can help you analyze which keywords your content is currently ranking for, expose the parent topics for those keywords, and help you quickly construct topic clusters based on what natural patterns have emerged across your content. Once you have your clusters reflected in HubSpot's SEO tool, you can use the tool to ensure you're linking all existing and new content thoughtfully and spot like clusters you can prioritize in your editorial calendar. And then third, keeping a tool like Ahrefs, keeping that in your toolbox enables you to monitor and track performance for high value keywords over time. That's the word keywords there. So again, I'll evangelize Ahrefs a little bit here, but if you decide to keep a tool like that, there's immense value that goes far beyond what HubSpot does right now. I won't say whatever could do, but there's a whole level of sophistication in terms of keyword tracking and management things you can do with Ahrefs that is kind of the more, not necessarily boring, but less glamorous side of the janitorial side of SEO and tracking and reporting that is outside the capability of HubSpot. So it's something to consider if you'd find that valuable. So that's it. It's not too complicated, but like I said, if this seems like a process that would lend itself well to your content program and you'd sleep easier at night knowing that you've cleared the cobwebs out of the SEO tool in HubSpot, and you have questions about how to do it or would like some more guidance on it, again, we'll send the recording out of this today, but feel free to reach out to us. And also, I'll say if there's work that you need done around pillar, the technical development side or design side of pillar pages, that's also something that we can provide support for. So we built pillar pages, tend to know what makes them good. We've seen good ones work before, seen a lot of bad ones, sort of bad ones. So if that is something that is kind of a next step for you, you're not sure where to go, you need to start organizing content a little bit better and evolve your content strategy with some better templates, feel free to let us know, because that's a discussion we can certainly have and either point you to a resource or help you out with it. So thanks for coming. I hope this is helpful. Let me know. And I hope you found it valuable. So take care.